Hi everyone, this is the part 2 of the field orientation videos. This one is going to focus specifically on assignments, time cards, and focusing primarily on the purpose and kind of how to navigate learning contracts. That is going to be the main content of this video. So let me switch screens. Practicum assignments. So full descriptions are found on page 32 in the manual. But these are the assignments that are given during our seminar classes, so the in-person 1 hour a week with me that the students have. These are assignments that are attached to that course. They have to utilize content from their practicum sites to be able to complete those assignments. And some of them do ask that they, like the research article presentations, we strongly encourage and suggest for students to present them to their supervisors or others at the agency as part of their professional development. So as you can see, there's not a ton of assignments because we really want the students to focus primarily on their work that they're doing for the agency. But both semesters, they do have a learning contract and evaluation. This serves as the assessment tool for us to make sure that students are mastering the competencies that are identified by the CSWE, which is our accrediting body. And so it also helps, we're going to go into this in a few slides, but it does kind of help keep students and agencies accountable to learning. A assignment that is specific to the fall semester is the agency analysis paper and presentation. So the students will need to collect some information regarding their agency, present it to their peers, and kind of collate all the information into the paper. This does help students kind of look at their practicum sites in a macro setting, not just at the individual level of the work that they're doing on a day-to-day, but to kind of help understand the bigger picture and the organizational piece. And so that is specific to the fall semester. Students will have to complete a journal just reflecting on their experiences. This goes through fall and winter semester. This is not something necessarily that they have to give to their supervisors unless that's something that you arrange with between the students and the supervisor. It's more for me and for the students. Students want to kind of reflect on their experiences, kind of help with the self-care and processing, and then for me to kind of see how the students are engaging in their setting. If there's like red flags or issues that I need to talk to them about, journals usually are a good indicator of that. Students are responsible for a case study in the winter. So the goal is by winter semester that they'll have identified when appropriate, and if it works in the agency, a client that they're able to kind of share a case study with to the class on, obviously maintaining confidentiality. But we hope by the end of winter semester that they have engaged enough with a specific client that they'll be able to go through our generalist model of how they worked with that client. And so that's one of the presentations too that we encourage the student to share with their supervisor. And then both semesters, students need to identify a scholarly research article that is focused on the population that their agency serves, and they present it to the class. And I also, like I said, encourage them to present it to their supervisor or other people in the agency. So students will get more information on this as we go through seminar class, but it's just good for all parties to know that's kind of what we're looking at, because there's participation on all levels that is required to be able to make these a successful and good assignment. So learning contracts, because this is kind of the big thing, is also can be very cumbersome and I think slightly confusing at times to navigate. I do want to spend a few minutes kind of going over the nuances of why we do it, what we're looking for, and how to make this the most effective evaluation tool for the student. So why do we have learning contracts? CSWE, the Council of Social Work Education, obviously is kind of asking us to do it because it shows us that our students are mastering the competencies that they've identified. And so this is kind of like the end of their education. At this point, they should have been able to master all the competencies through their education and through practice. And this is just the evaluation tool to reflect that. Oftentimes at agencies, there's the potential of a student just going and not really having any specific focus. It can feel overwhelming for the agency and for the student. So the learning contract aims to kind of break these down into specific measurable activities and goals, because that helps the student develop the professional competencies that we're looking for. It does foster a learning relationship between the student and the field supervisor. And so there's like that reciprocal responsibility of the supervisor providing the opportunities, but the students also being proactive and engaged in their own learning. And so defining boundaries for what is possible. This one's important to note. These are bachelor's level students. We do try to place them at sites that have bachelor level appropriate services and work for them to do. We've had a few times, especially with some staffing shortages, where students might be prompted to do activities that might be a little bit out of their scope of practice and a little bit more clinically advanced than where a bachelor student might be at. And so this kind of a learning contract aims to kind of put some safeguards in place to make sure that students are doing what's appropriate for a student learner at a bachelor's level. This one kind of ties with the other green one. It just provides accountability and an evaluation tool for both the students and the agencies. Competency-based education, that's really what the Council of Social Work Education values within all of the social work programs. And so we're looking at outcomes, not just the learning piece or the academic piece. We want to look at how do you take the academic knowledge that you've learned and produce outcomes from it. And so addresses what students are expected to do versus what they're just expected to learn about. And then we advocate for defining educational goals in terms of precise, measurable descriptions. This prepares them really well to write goals for any sort of plans that they might have with clients down the road. So it kind of serves a dual purpose, but it does reemphasize the fact that in order for things to be evaluated, you have to have specific measurable pieces within the plan. So if anyone's had experience writing SMART goals, learning contracts mirror that process very, very, very closely. So we'll have the competencies. So there are 9 of them defined by the Council of Social Work Education. We add an additional one to reflect our value of the reformed worldview. And so those are kind of the broad things that we're looking at. This is really what we want to achieve overall. And then the CSWE also does provide specific practice behaviors. There's usually about 2 or 3 attached to each competency. And then where the student and the agency and myself come in is we identify the learning activities. So this is the most specific thing, and it's going to be specific to each site as well. But you identify a learning activity for each practice behavior. And then the goal is to evaluate the learning activity to show eventual competency in what they need to know. So again, very similar to SMART goals. Like I said, they're determined by the CSWE. Kuiper adds the 10th one regarding reformed worldview and how that incorporates into our practice. Practice behaviors specify how competencies are realized. And again, these are all identical for students. So these 2 things will be the same for every student, but the learning activities are going to provide the data specific to the agency to show that the students have mastered these 2. Things to note around learning contracts. I will work with the students in seminar to come up with different learning activities. This tends to be rather intimidating because students are just learning about their placement, about how and what the agency does. And so coming up with practice behaviors when you're still learning the agency can feel a little bit daunting and confusing. And so I kind of coach them on what to look for and what types of activities might fall under each practice behavior. And then supervisors come in and kind of give the specifics of how their agency does those things in real life. And so it's kind of that's how all those wheels come together. I don't know. How all the different moving parts make it a really purposeful internship. So we will start talking about learning contracts a few weeks into the semester. And so by mid-October, they will be finalized to be able to be used then for the midterm evaluation, which is at the end of fall semester. So they'll utilize the seminar class to strengthen the skills in writing measurable learning activities. Again, very aligned with SMART goals. I just talked about that one. How about the supervisors and students can collaborate to identify activities in the agency. And it's used as the midterm evaluation at the end of fall, and then the overall end of internship evaluation at the end of the winter semester in April. I'm going to challenge supervisors and remind students around this. I'm not looking for perfect marks on the midterm or after the fall semester evaluation, because you are not expected to be a expert at that point. And so I have students who have been very devastated and crushed not to receive perfect marks because they strive for A's and perfection, which is awesome and great, but this is not necessarily achievable. You're developing competency, and so being able to let that go and accept the ranking. If you get, let's say, around like 9s or 8s or 9s on the rankings versus 10, I will still give you an A if you are doing everything that you're supposed to be doing. I don't necessarily take the evaluation grade at that, because I know that you're still developing. You will receive an A because you are doing what you're supposed to be doing in the learning process, if that makes sense. And so I'm going to challenge the supervisors to make sure they're doing fair assessments and not defaulting to like they're doing really good, I'm going to give them a 10. Encourage students to grow in different areas and provide helpful feedback is really, really, really beneficial, because it also teaches students to be able to take corrective feedback and take it in a personal way without becoming offended. Then second semester, they will take the same learning contract but modify it in different ways with new content from the second semester. So you're not starting from scratch, but you're enhancing it. Often the verbiage that I see in first semester is more of like observing and training and learning. Second semester, I'm looking for more action-oriented verbs where they're actually doing activities. So whether like sitting with an individual or providing the resources themselves and not doing the shadowing, observing. I'm looking for that kind of tweaking for second semester. Sometimes halfway through a semester, an activity comes up that was not in the learning contract. Feel free to utilize that and put that in as a way to measure the competency. That's totally appropriate as well. And so then at the end of second semester, we will use that as the evaluation method. For individuals who are doing their block placement, we will do the learning contract evaluation mid-October. That will serve as like the midterm. And then at the end of the fall semester, you'll have the finalized learning contract. So we'll tweak that a little bit for you, but that's kind of how it works. Important reminders, you will need to sign off on evaluation. Supervisors will. Please include your credentials. That's a huge piece of accreditation, and I will bug you if you don't. So make sure you're throwing on your MSW or BSW and all documentation. The learning contract should reflect the needs and interests of the specific student, specific to your setting, making sure it's individualized and really intentional. Again, that really helps the learning process. And just remember, it's a working document and can be modified as needed. So in the field manual, near the back, I gotta find it a second. We do have a sample learning blank learning contract. This is on page 37. Students are also given this template so they can just plug it all in, and this will give exactly the competencies and practice behaviors needed. So that is all pre-prepared. Students just have to fill it in as they develop the learning activities. So we talk about it a lot in seminar. Here for support if things get crazy. We are using the 2022 EPAS from CSWE, and so hopefully that's consistent with other schools that you might have interns from. That's where we're at. So we'll continue to circle back, but just know this learning contract is a huge piece of the learning process, and we want to make sure we do it well and do it purposefully.